Could I add something? You don't necessarily have to be farming to support the agricultural industry.
Great point.
This last week at this National Milk Producers Federation, there were 3 new hires there who had all grown up on farms. They're doing the work in Washington, D.C. I'll use the example of my daughter. She grew up on a farm. She didn't do a whole lot of chores, but she knew how to do chores. She now knows what's going on, and she did move back to the state. She was in Washington, D.C. She and her husband moved back to the state. My wife is in 7th Heaven. But to continue, she works for a company remotely. She's expecting herself to be at work at 9. Many of her coworkers come in at 10 or 11. She sputters to me every time I talk to her that they didn't have that culture to know. You get there on time and you do your work. But I just want, and I'll just put in a plug. Every time I go to a meeting, I make sure the state officials know there is agriculture on the eastern side of the state. We'll thank Chuck for bringing some extension to our side of the state, but it isn't enough. I don't want to get you too swell-headed, Chuck. No, but I think it is important to say that you don't necessarily have to get your hands dirty to be supportive of agriculture.
Yeah, you just have to eat, really.
Correct. Most people do that.
Time? Yeah, so, awesome. That brings us to the listener participation part of this program. Does anyone have a question that they would like to pose to one or all of our panelists? All right, your hand is up first, so please just stand and speak.
Diversification has been a long tradition on Vermont farms. We heard diverse food enterprises on Shona's farm. You talked about plowing driveways, custom harvesting, sawmill, sugaring. How much do you feel diversification is important to the sustainability of Vermont farms both now and looking towards the future?
And are you directing that to a particular person or?
I'll answer first. Without diversification, we wouldn't be in business. We get somewhere near 85% of our income from milk, but that other 15% makes a big difference on a farm our size because we're not gonna, we milk 70 right now at 116, well, 115, the cattle truck came today. But we are not gonna go to 500 cows. Because if we do, my son will do it, and he's told me he will not do it. We're constrained by land. If you have been in the Route 12 area going through Barnett and Bethel, there aren't many flat or big fields. We have a 10-acre field, and we consider that to be a big one.
Speak a little bit. I think I've been thinking a lot about, both the good and the bad of diversification recently. I think my parents have been very diversified from the beginning, and it's something that's really important to them, both providing for their community and thinking about the ecology of it. The integration of livestock and vegetables makes a lot of sense. But I think also thinking about profitability and management, diversification is really difficult. And the more different things that you're trying to manage, the harder it is to manage any one of those well, and to put the full energy you need into one of those things. So I think that's one of those challenges of small farms is how can you manage it on a small scale to make a profit, and if it's just going towards diversification, is that really going to make it more profitable or less work, or is it just adding to the load that farmers are expected to carry? I don't have an answer to that, but it's something that I think a lot about.
We had a similar realization where we started doing pigs and chickens and flowers and vegetables and all the things, and we didn't do any of them well. And so we've narrowed down. We still do a few pigs and a few chickens, but after this year we're not doing chickens. We might still do a few pigs, but instead we're looking at diversity in our markets. So diversification within the vegetables that we grow, certainly growing a wide variety in case there's a crop failure, trying to keep up with trends and what people eat, but also looking into new routes. Can we work with caterers who are capitalizing on this? People from New York coming to Vermont to have their farm-to-table wedding, or can they just look at farming in a different way. And then we still want to be able to give people within our CSA especially a diverse product, but can we partner with other farms? Can we do more working together within our community? So we now work with a bread baker, meat producers, egg producers, and fruit producers to all feed into our CSA.
So, John, was saying like a diversity of like community also, and now it affect like a little bit with like the climatic condition also. I think it's in winter is quite like very expensive things like the same in the summertime, and this is the Vermont is gonna be like the mostly like without any snow and all. That time, for example, for the goat, like the grain, it's very expensive and we need to keep inside the barn every time. So we didn't have a time to take, we didn't able to take in a snow like the outside. So we need to feed inside that. And it make like the profitable is quite like the difficult raising like a lot of number of animals. So yeah, some of them they have like the challenges evolving. I think it's a climatical change also.
You want to talk to that at all, Matt?
Sure. Yeah, I don't think diversification is necessarily a must. I think kind of along what you said there, if you're doing a bunch of different things and not doing them well, it's probably not going to benefit anything. I guess diversification is where you're going to go if what you're doing isn't making you enough money. I know in our business model, the sawmill is our diversification that allows me and my brother to be back on the farm. So when my parents want to retire, hopefully, in a few years or whatever, we're going to have to take a hard look at whether we're going to stay diversified or not, because we don't have the time to run both of those operations with just me and my brother. So I think diversification is good if it works for you, but I also know other dairy farmers that's all they've done is just milk cows, but they're incredibly tight with their dollar and they are methodical about the way they do it, and it's worked well for them. They haven't had to diversify. I think it totally depends on your management strategy.
I just wanted to say one more thing is, I think there's, like Matt was kind of saying, it's like, can we figure out how to support farms to be able to just focus on one thing and not feel like they're diversifying because they're not making enough money on the one thing that they really want to do. I think a lot of times diversification is thought of this way, like I'm not making a living, so maybe I'll add something else. And I think there's real value in having a diversified community of farms, but can we figure out a way to make it so that people are able to make a profit focusing on, something that they do really want to focus on.
Thank you. There was another hand, I think. Yeah. Yes, please.
Hey, yeah, I'm loud.
Yeah.
Paul, I don't mean to put you on a hot seat, and so this could be for the whole group to answer, but you said something that I had never considered as a negative term, which is steward of the land. So I want to just unpack that a little bit, but and help me understand why that's a term that you don't like, and maybe for the rest of the panelists, what it means to you. And so maybe I've been missing something.
I'll stand up so the seat won't be so hot. Being the chair of a school board of 13 people, and 3 of them attorneys, was a hot seat. No, it's an overused term, and I don't think people have the same definition. It's one of those terms that I think gets overused. More about sustainability, and now people say sustainability isn't the end word, but it involves caring for the 3 areas, and I'll mess them up in a minute, but land, people, planet, whatever the 3 terms are, however you do it. But my definition of stewardship does not equate to what the term is used by many people, and I'm leaning more toward the sustainability net zero side of it. Not that sustainability is a bad word, but it's just one that I think is overused and sometimes not properly.
Yeah.
Hewitt.
Yeah. I need a mic.
Yeah, sorry, I went that way, everyone else.
So I think one thing that's important to Vermont's culture is people's relationships to large animals. So I'm going to direct this question to Matt and Paul. Can you envision a way that small dairy farms can come back? I know, Matt, you said it wasn't kind of within a business model potential, but are there schemes, are there systems that you could, relationships that could be built where small farms could exist, small areas could exist in the state? And what kind of support would that mean?
I'll let you start.
You're kind of in on this stuff all the time. You want me to make my uneducated stab at it? I guess what I meant by that is, if you're doing, well, what we do, I guess, and we're getting by all right, but we're selling a commodity, and if that's, we're competing against other areas in the country where, you know, he's talking about land constraints, same thing where we are. I mean, to grow any bigger, to try to capture economies of scale is just unrealistic given the topography of Vermont. It's just not, when you go out to Texas where they just didn't plant. And I can just tell you, it's very obviously, we have 50 acres around our home place, and then everything else, the other 200 or whatever we crop is at least 3 miles away.